The stars beyond the viewport of the Imperial flagship glittered coldly, indifferent to the commotion within. Commander Elias Varn stood silently, claws resting on the polished railing, his amber eyes fixed on a pale blue sphere spinning slowly below. Earth. A world dismissed by the Galactic Empire as primitive, unworthy of concern. But Elias remembered it differently. Behind him, the War Council convened in the Grand Chamber, the air thick with expectation. High Admiral Zyron Tal, his scales glinting under the overhead lights, paced like a predator surveying prey. The holographic display above flickered with images of Earth's cities and infrastructure, annotated with projected invasion routes. "We will strike at dawn," Zyron declared, his voice ironclad. "Their defenses are minimal. Humanity lacks coordination. Resistance will be trivial." Elias cleared his throat. "Admiral," he said, his tone even but firm, "you underestimate them. If you proceed as planned, this will not be a quick campaign. It will be a slaughter of our forces." A ripple of murmurs spread through the council. One officer snorted. "Commander Varn, Earth is a backwater planet. Your caution borders on paranoia." Zyron's head tilted slightly, the subtle curl of a reptilian sneer. "Explain yourself, Varn. Have you misread the intelligence, or do your nerves betray you?" Elias's jaw tightened. "I have seen them in battle. Humanity adapts in ways the Empire does not anticipate. They fight with unpredictability, courage that defies logic, and tactics that exploit every weakness." "Enough," Zyron interrupted sharply. "Your recollections are anecdotal at best. We are a galaxy-spanning force. One colony cannot dictate Imperial policy." Elias's tail lashed with controlled tension. "Not one colony, Admiral. Entire regiments. Entire fleets. And yet the Empire dismissed it then, as it dismisses Earth now. You are walking into the same trap." A pause fell. Zyron's gaze was steady, unyielding. "And what would you have us do, Commander? Retreat? Abandon our duty to expand?" "No," Elias replied, voice low. "You would listen. You would adapt. Or at the very least, you would not underestimate them." Zyron's eyes narrowed. "We move at dawn." "Dismissed." Elias turned, jaw set, and stepped toward the observation deck, leaving murmurs and tension behind. Outside, Earth rotated quietly, oceans gleaming under distant sunlight. It seemed peaceful. Too peaceful. He allowed his mind to drift back, the memory sharp and unrelenting. It had been 20 years ago, on a distant human colony on Viridian Prime. The assignment was simple, a pacification mission, routine in Imperial terms. What was meant to be a swift show of power had spiraled into chaos within hours. Elias remembered the first engagement. Scouts reported small human units, poorly armed, scattered across the forested terrain. Yet every ambush they laid was precise. Mines detonated with terrifying timing, traps funneled his troops into kill zones, and every retreating human seemed to vanish, only to reappear in a new location with devastating effect. He remembered the scream of the first Kethari casualty, a soldier he had trained personally, ripped apart by a human's improvised explosive. The humans fought with what he could only call fanaticism, faces twisted with either fear nor hesitation, each willing to die for their position. One human, a young sergeant no older than 20, had confronted his squad directly, throwing a detonator at their command vehicle before sprinting into the shadows. The explosion wiped out an entire unit. Elias had watched in disbelief, unable to comprehend the recklessness that was somehow so effective. "They fight differently," he muttered under his breath, a line he had repeated countless times over the years. "Not recklessly, not foolishly, but differently." Their logic was alien. Their courage unquantifiable. The memory faded, replaced by the cold reality of the present. Zyron's fleet hummed in readiness, and officers scurried to finalize strategies. Elias returned to the War Council chamber, his scales catching the light, a silent warning of storms beneath calm waters. "Commander Varn," Zyron said, leaning forward, "you seem haunted by past failures. Do not let them cloud your judgment here. They are not failures," Elias replied, steady. They are lessons. And if we ignore them now, history will repeat itself, on a scale we will not survive. One officer, a young strategist named Tryon, leaned forward. Are you suggesting we ignore Imperial intelligence? That we delay the campaign? I am suggesting we respect what we do not understand, Elias said. Humanity is not a primitive species. They are dangerous, calculated, and resilient. Xiron rose, towering, voice sharp. Dangerous, yes. But we are the Empire. Their resilience does not negate our superiority. Do not confuse fear with foresight. Elias's gaze did not waver. If you believe that, you are about to learn the cost. A subtle tension settled over the room. The officers exchanged glances, some unconvinced, others unnerved by the certainty in Elias's tone. The holographic display shifted, highlighting landing zones, troop formations, orbital strike paths. Each plan, meticulously calculated, would encounter unpredictability Elias had already anticipated. Outside, Earth's blue ocean shimmered like a jewel, serene and unyielding. It was a world the Empire expected to bend easily. Elias knew it would not. Prepare the fleet for departure, Xiron said finally, his voice final, dismissive. Dawn waits for no one. Elias bowed slightly, a gesture of duty, but inside he braced himself. The warning had been given. History had been recalled. Now, only action remained, and he feared what the morning would bring. As the council dispersed, he lingered on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly, yet Earth below was alive with potential, with defiance, with a ferocity no imperial algorithm could measure. They do not fear death like we do, Elias whispered to the void. And soon, the Empire will find out why. The flagship shivered as its engines powered up. Somewhere in the dark, humanity waited. Unseen. Unanticipated. Unstoppable. The fleet moved with mechanical precision, silent and menacing, like a dark shadow cast over a fragile world. From the flagship's command deck, Commander Elias Varn watched as the countless warships aligned in orbital formation, their engines thrumming in unison. Xiron Tal stood beside the central console, arms crossed, radiating confidence. Every holographic display proclaimed a victory already won, Earth reduced to a predictable target. Elias's gaze flicked to the planet below. Cities glimmered in daylight, seemingly unprepared. But he had learned better. Beneath that placid surface, humanity was alive with unpredictability, and the first sign of trouble would arrive faster than the Empire anticipated. Status report, Xiron demanded, his voice cutting through the low hum of machinery. Orbital scans show initial defensive structures, Tryon answered, tapping the display. Nothing that cannot be neutralized in the first strike. Elias interjected. The reports are misleading. They conceal more than they reveal. Humans do not rely solely on visible defenses. Their ingenuity lies in improvisation, makeshift weaponry, hidden fortifications, adaptive tactics. They will counter in ways our algorithms cannot predict. Xiron's lips curled in amusement. Commander, we dominate the stars. Their improvisation is irrelevant. Our fleets will overwhelm them in hours, not days. Hours? Elias muttered. Perhaps. Or perhaps they will turn those hours into a trap that decimates half the fleet. Xiron waved him off. You are here to follow orders, Varn, not to speculate. Elias's tail flicked in frustration. If you understood them, you would see the danger. I've faced these humans before. They are not predictable, not cowardly, and certainly not weak. Enough warnings, Xiron said, his voice final. Commence orbital strikes. The first salvo tore through the upper atmosphere. Plasma torpedoes streaked toward the largest cities, and missiles targeted strategic installations. Elias watched closely, noting the initial success. Smoke rose in towering columns, and several defensive towers crumpled under fire. It was the calm before a storm he had already foreseen. Impact reports? Xiron barked. Tryon's voice hesitated. Orbital strikes successful on primary targets, but some platforms are still transmitting. Sensors indicate anomalies. Elias stiffened. They adapt instantly. Watch their response patterns. They will exploit any vulnerability in seconds. Across the planet, hidden weapon platforms, previously invisible, emerged from urban landscapes and forests alike. Energy cannons pivoted, not randomly, but with uncanny precision, intercepting torpedoes mid-flight. Small human craft zipped between orbital strikes, targeting weak points in the fleet's outer defense. Each strike that hit a human position seemed to provoke a dozen counterattacks, almost coordinated, almost instinctive. Zyron frowned, but his pride remained unbroken. Minor interference. Continue the assault. Maintain formation. Elias clenched his claws. They are testing the limits of your fleet, learning our patterns in real time. Every misstep will cost you dearly. Flashbacks flickered in his mind. Years before, on the planet Ardennes, he had witnessed the first organized human resistance on a larger scale. Imperial forces had expected a swift victory, but the humans used deception, misdirection, and sudden ambushes. Entire regiments vanished in smoke-filled valleys only to reappear behind enemy lines. They improvised traps, broadcasted morale-boosting signals mid-battle, and struck with a precision that defied Imperial calculations. One human soldier had climbed a ridge under fire, setting explosives beneath an entire armored unit, and then casually retreated. The explosion had wiped out a dozen Ketheri warriors. Elias remembered the horror and admiration, the terrifying effectiveness of creatures so underestimated. "Commander Varn," Tryon said nervously, "our drones are being jammed. Target acquisition is failing intermittently." "Predictable," Elias said. "They disrupt communication first, then strike at command points. They understand our reliance on coordination, and they exploit it ruthlessly." "Do you suggest we halt the assault?" Tryon asked cautiously. "No. Keep moving, but anticipate losses. Every assumption about their weakness will be challenged, and our arrogance will cost us." By midday, the Empire's outer ships had begun to falter. Human forces struck simultaneously across multiple locations. Orbital skirmishers disabled a heavy cruiser, forested highlands erupted with ambushes, and coastal cities revealed hidden artillery that neutralized ground forces before they could deploy fully. "Commander, their efficiency," Tryon began, voice tense. "It's beyond tactical simulation." "They adapt," Elias said, calm but grave. "They do not rely solely on brute strength. Every maneuver teaches them our weaknesses. Watch their timing. Watch their improvisation. The moment we predict them, they will surprise us again." Zyron's eyes darted across the display. "You exaggerate. They cannot match our firepower." Elias shook his head. "They do not need to match it. They bend it to their will." In one urban center, a group of human soldiers triggered an improvised electromagnetic pulse that disabled the shields of a Ketheri battleship. Boarding parties immediately breached, moving with coordination that mimicked trained Imperial squads. Across the planet, every failed strike, every exposed position, became a teaching moment for the humans, transforming each encounter into a lesson the Empire was too slow to learn. Elias's jaw tightened. "They are teaching themselves faster than we can respond. Every attack strengthens them, and every dismissal of their tactics strengthens their advantage." "Commander," Zyron growled, his pride fraying, "why do they fight this way? Why are they so unyielding?" Elias looked at him, eyes sharp. "Because they have no fear of what you fear. They do not fight for conquest or glory. They fight for survival, for their world, for each other. That is a kind of power the Empire has never known." The flagship trembled as another attack disrupted its energy conduits. Alarms blared. Officers scrambled, issuing orders that no longer guaranteed results. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, unpredictable, unstoppable. Elias turned to the viewport, watching the pale blue planet below, scarred but unbroken. "You cannot control them, Admiral. You cannot predict them. And yet you continue." Zyron's pride faltered, his snarl fading into a thin line of tension. For the first time, doubt crept into the Empire's commanding officer. Elias whispered, almost to himself. They underestimated them, and now it begins. The battle had only just started. Humanity was already rewriting the rules. The Empire, confident in its perfection, was learning the first lesson of many. Strategy alone could not conquer a species that defied expectation, that thrived in chaos, and that fought with a unity born of necessity rather than ambition. And Elias, the lone voice of reason, could only watch as history repeated itself, yet again. The flagship shuddered violently as energy pulses rattled through its hull. Lights flickered, consoles sparked, and alarms screamed in unison. Commander Elias Varn steadied himself on the railing, claws gripping the metal, eyes scanning the chaos below. Humanity was no longer just resisting, they were dictating the terms of battle. Status report! Zyron Tau barked, his voice sharp, though edged with a rare tension. Trion's claws trembled as he pointed to the display. Multiple systems offline. Boarding parties detected in 3 sectors. Our reinforcements cannot reach them, and they're exploiting every gap in our defenses. Elias's tail lashed in frustration. They're improvising faster than we can adapt. Every failure is a lesson for them. Every assumption we make, they turn against us. Zyron's snout curled, scales bristling. Impossible! Their numbers cannot match ours. Our ships, our weapons, everything is superior. They are superior in one thing you cannot calculate: resolve. Elias said, voice low but firm. They fight for more than victory. They fight for survival, for each other. And that makes them unpredictable, relentless. The flagship trembled again as a boarding party breached the hull, moving with unnerving efficiency. Human soldiers, equipped with nothing more advanced than kinetic rifles and improvised tools, navigated corridors with surgical precision. Imperial guards fell quickly, caught off guard by tactics that defied conventional expectation. Elias moved to intercept, coordinating defensive teams. Seal the bulkheads. Cut off their approach. Focus on containment, not retaliation. Commander, the breaches are multiplying. Trion shouted, panic creeping into his voice. We can't hold them. Elias clenched his teeth. Then we survive as long as we can and observe. Every move they make teaches us something we should have learned years ago. Flashbacks pressed against his consciousness, sharper than ever. The battle on Ardenes, the Viridian colony, every encounter with humans, each instance replayed with painful clarity. They had thrived when cornered, learned from their mistakes, and adapted instantly. They turned weakness into strength and fear into strategy. And now, Earth soldiers were doing the same, on a scale the Empire could not contain. A human squad reached the control deck, cutting through the defenses with speed and coordination that defied Imperial expectations. They moved as if guided by instinct, exploiting every technical flaw, every oversight. Imperial officers fell back, disoriented, while Elias directed reinforcements to protect key systems. Commander! Trion's voice broke over the calm. They've reached the energy conduit. Without it, we lose propulsion. Elias's claws clenched. Then protect it at all costs. Focus on the conduit. Zyron stormed toward him, frustration etched into every scale. Why is this happening? They cannot! You said we would dominate. I warned you, Elias said, calm yet unforgiving. You ignored the lessons of the past. You assumed strength alone was sufficient. But humanity does not operate on assumption. They improvise, they adapt, and they endure. And you refuse to listen. Zyron's eyes flickered with something he had not experienced in decades: doubt. Then, what do we do? Elias's gaze swept the chaos around them. Survive. And remember. On the surface of Earth, human forces were everywhere and nowhere. Ambushes from urban ruins, forested highlands, and coastal cliffs fragmented Imperial formations. Energy pulses and kinetic strikes disabled ships before they could coordinate effectively. Boarding teams infiltrated vessels, moving like shadows, disarming technology, and turning Imperial strength against itself. Elias moved from console to console, issuing orders, redirecting reinforcements, and attempting to minimize losses. He watched as human ingenuity dismantled the Empire's carefully constructed advantage. One strike disabled the flagship's main shields, another sabotaged life support systems. Every action was precise, unexpected, and devastatingly effective. "Commander," Tryon said, voice trembling, "our formation is collapsing. Entire battalions are being cut off or destroyed." Elias nodded grimly. "I see it. But take note. Observe how they fight, how they coordinate, how they survive against superior firepower. This is a species the Empire has consistently underestimated. Never forget that." The flagship shook violently as human boarding teams advanced toward the command deck. Xiron drew his energy blade, teeth bared in a snarl. "We will not fall to primitives!" Elias stepped beside him, calm but resolute. "Primitives? No. Survivors, strategists, and warriors beyond your calculation. This is what you refuse to see." The humans breached the doors, moving with deadly coordination. Imperial guards fell under precise strikes, caught between traditional hierarchy and improvisation they could not anticipate. Elias directed his forces with sharp commands, keeping the humans from reaching critical systems for as long as possible. Amid the chaos, he realized the battle's true lesson: the Empire's pride had blinded it. Superior weapons, numerical advantage, and intricate strategy were meaningless against an enemy that could evolve mid-conflict, that drew strength from survival and unity rather than conquest. Hours passed in what felt like seconds. Energy conduits ignited and failed, ships spun helplessly in orbit, and the flagship's command deck was a scene of controlled chaos. Xiron's snarl had faded into a thin, tense line. Elias watched a human soldier disable the main targeting system with a jury-rigged EMP device. The officer shrugged as if it were routine. "This is what we warned you about," Elias said softly, almost to himself. Xiron's head bowed slightly. "You were right." Elias did not answer. There was no victory to celebrate, only survival and the grim acknowledgement that the Empire had misjudged humanity. As the last boarding parties were repelled, or redirected by desperate maneuvers, the battlefield fell into a tense, uneasy silence. The Empire's forces were fractured, battered, and reeling. Earth remained defiant, scarred but unconquered. And Elias stood on the observation deck, looking at the planet below. "They did not listen," he whispered. "And now the universe will remember." For the first time in decades, Elias allowed himself a small, grim acknowledgement of relief. Humanity had survived. They had endured. They had fought, and won in ways the Empire could neither predict nor control. The stars beyond seemed indifferent, but the battlefield had proven otherwise. A species dismissed, underestimated, and ignored had reminded the galaxy that true strength is measured not by technology or numbers, but by resilience, ingenuity, and the will to survive. Elias exhaled slowly, watching the pale blue planet turn beneath him. "They are not the strongest, not yet. But they are unstoppable when underestimated. Remember that." The flagship trembled again, engines groaning as the damaged fleet tried to regroup. Around him, officers struggled to comprehend the scale of defeat. Yet in the midst of chaos, one truth remained unshakable: the humans of Earth had rewritten the rules of engagement. And nothing the Empire had known could prepare it for what was to come. Elias's eyes, amber and steady, never left the planet. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "And they will not forgive ignorance."